The Ebony Horse, a bedtime story from Arabian Nights. Welcome, dear stories bloom like night flowers under moonlight. Let the world outside grow distant now. Feel your body settle into softness, like sand smoothing beneath gentle waves. Tonight's tale comes from ancient Persia, where palaces touched clouds and magic lived in the hands of clever craftsmen. This is a story of a prince who flew, of a horse carved from midnight itself, and of love that crossed kingdoms on wings of wonder. Let each word wash over you like warm silk. Breathe slowly. There is nowhere else to be but here, drifting into dreams as old as starlight. Listen now, with your heart soft and your eyes growing heavy, to the tale of the Ebony Horse. In the golden days when Persia's glory spread across mountains and deserts, like dawn spreading across sky, there lived a king whose wisdom was matched only by his love of marvels. The king of Persia sat upon a throne of cedar wood and ivory, and his palace gardens held fountains that sang like birds, flowers that perfumed the air for miles, and pools where golden fish swam in water clear as crystal. This king had 3 children, 2 sons brave and strong, and 1 daughter whose beauty was spoken of in whispers, as if saying her name too loudly might shatter something precious. Princess Shams al-Nahar, they called her, light of the day, for her face held all the warmth of sunrise, and her kindness touched everyone who knew her. Each year, on the great festival of Nowruz, when spring breathed new life into the world, the king of Persia welcomed inventors and artists and makers of wonders to his court. They came from distant lands carrying treasures, mechanical birds that sang real songs, clocks that showed the movements of stars, gardens that bloomed in impossible colors. On one such festival morning, when the air smelled of rose water and cardamom, when silk banners fluttered like butterflies against the blue sky, 3 men approached the palace gates. The first was a Persian sage, old as the mountains, with a beard like white silk and eyes that sparkled with secrets. The second was a craftsman from distant India, his robes embroidered with threads of gold. The third was a man whose homeland no one could name, dressed in black, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Each carried a wonder to present to the king. The palace courtyard filled with people as the demonstrations began. Courtiers in their finest clothes, children holding their parents' hands, merchants and poets and musicians, all gathered to watch. The spring sun warmed the marble tiles. Somewhere a fountain whispered its endless song. The Persian sage stepped forward first, bowing low. From his robes he drew a trumpet, not made of brass or silver, but carved from a single piece of golden horn, polished until it gleamed like captured sunlight. "Majesty," the sage said, his voice soft as sand shifting in wind, "this trumpet holds a gift for your protection. Set it at your city gates. If enemies approach, armies marching with ill intent, the trumpet will sound of its own accord, giving warning before danger arrives." The king's eyes widened with interest. He gestured for the sage to demonstrate. The old man whispered something to the trumpet, some word in an ancient tongue, and placed it on a cushion. Everyone held their breath. Then, though no one touched it, though no wind blew, the trumpet lifted itself and sang out, a clear, strong note that echoed across the courtyard like the call of a golden bird. The sound spoke of warning, of protection, of safety. The court applauded, murmuring in amazement. The king smiled and nodded. "A magnificent gift! You shall be rewarded well." Next came the Indian craftsman, carrying a box of sandalwood. He knelt before the throne and opened the box carefully, as if it held something alive. Inside, nestled in red silk, lay a peacock fashioned entirely from precious metals, its body of gold, its tail feathers of silver and copper, its eyes 2 perfect emeralds that caught the light. "Your Majesty," the craftsman said, his voice rich with pride. This peacock marks the passage of time itself. Each hour that passes, it will spread its tail and call out, keeping perfect time without fail, never needing winding, never stopping. It knows the rhythms of the universe itself. The mechanical peacock on the ground. Everyone leaned forward to watch. Time seemed to slow. Then, as if responding to some invisible signal, the peacock stirred. Its golden head turned. Its silver tail feathers spread wide, each one catching the sunlight, sending rainbow reflections dancing across the courtyard. From its jeweled throat came a sound, not harsh like a real peacock's cry, but musical, clear as bells, announcing the hour. The tail folded again with a soft clicking of perfect gears. Silence fell over the courtyard, then broke into wondering applause. Children gasped. Ladies whispered behind their veils. The king leaned forward on his throne, delighted. "Marvelous! Truly marvelous!" he declared. "You too shall have a generous reward." Then the third man stepped forward. He was neither young nor old, neither tall nor short, but something about him made people uneasy. He wore robes of deepest black, and his beard was oiled and pointed. When he smiled, it reminded some of a fox smiling at chickens. But the wonder he brought made everyone forget their unease. Behind him, servants struggled to pull something covered by a massive cloth. They tugged and strained until finally the mysterious shape stood in the center of the courtyard. The black-robed man swept away the covering with a flourish. It stood a horse, but such a horse as no one had ever seen. It was carved seems to hold midnight within its blue grain. Every detail was perfect. The arch of its neck, the flare of its nostrils, the ripple of muscles beneath its carved hide. Its mane seemed to flow like silk frozen in time. Its eyes were inlaid with precious stones that gleamed with an almost living light. Upon its back sat a saddle of ivory and gold, and bridle of silver wire fine as spider silk. Discharged absolutely still, yet something about it suggested motion, as if at any moment it might toss its dark head and paw the ground. "Majesty," the man in black said, his voice smooth as oil, "this horse surpasses all other wonders. The trumpet gives warning, the peacock tells time, but my ebony horse conquers space itself. Whoever mounts this horse and knows its secret can fly through the air swifter than eagles, cross mountains and seas in heartbeats, travel to the ends of the earth and return before sunset. The whole world becomes smaller than your garden." Gasps rippled through the crowd. People pushed closer to see. The king rose from his throne, unable to contain his amazement. He descended the steps and walked around the horse, examining every detail. "This cannot be," he breathed. "A horse that flies? You claim it truly works?" Tightening. "See for yourself, Majesty. Let any rider you trust test its power." Firefight. The king turned to his eldest son, Prince Kamar. "You are the finest horseman in Persia. Mount this wonder and show us if this man speaks truth or fantasy." Prince Kamar, eager and brave, climbed onto the ebony horse. He settled into the golden saddle, took up the silver reins. The horse remained still as stone beneath him. "How do I make it go?" the prince called down. The man in black smiled his fox smile. "There is a pin on the right side of the saddle. Turn it." Prince Kamar found the pin, a small peg that turned beneath his fingers. He rotated it clockwise. Immediately, the ebony horse trembled. Its wooden legs seemed to gather strength. Then, smooth as thought, it rose into the air. The crowd cried out in wonder and fear. The horse climbed higher, carrying the prince up past the palace walls, up past the highest tower, up until horse and rider were small as birds against the blue sky. Higher still it went, circling the palace in great spirals, the prince's robes streaming behind him like banner silk. For long moments everyone watched in stunned silence, heads tilted back, hands shading eyes against the sun. The ebony horse moved through the air as easily as fish move through water, as gracefully as clouds drift on wind. Then Prince Kamar guided the horse downward. It descended in smooth curves and landed softly in the courtyard, its ebony hooves touching marble with barely a sound. The prince dismounted, his face flushed with excitement and joy. "Father! Father, it's true! Every word is true! I flew! I saw our whole city spread below like a painted map! The horse obeys perfectly! I could have flown to the moon!" The king embraced his son, laughing with delight. He turned to the man in black, his eyes shining. "Name your reward, gold, jewels, land, anything in my kingdom, you have only to ask." The man in black bowed low. When he straightened, his eyes gleamed with an unpleasant light. "Majesty is generous beyond measure. I ask for only one treasure." He paused, letting silence build. "I ask for the hand of your daughter, Princess Shams al-Nahar, in marriage." The joy drained from the courtyard like water from a broken cup. Playoffs, the king's smile faded. The gathered courtiers stirred uneasily. Prince Kamar's expression darkened with anger, and from the shaded alcove where the ladies of the court watched, there came a small, stifled sound, perhaps a gasp, perhaps something like fear. The king's second son, Prince Farouk, younger than Kamar but wiser in certain ways, stepped forward quickly. "Father, wait! This man asks too much. My sister is a princess of Persia, descended from kings, beloved by all people. This stranger, we know nothing of his lineage, his homeland, his character. You cannot—" "Silence!" the man in black snapped, his smooth manner cracking like a mask. "I have brought the greatest wonder ever seen. I have given your father the power to cross the world. Is that not worth more than all the gold and perfumes and silk-robed princes who have come seeking your sister's hand? I have earned this reward." The king stood trapped between honor and love. He had given his word, anything in the kingdom, and a king's word was sacred as rain, certain as sunrise. But to give his precious daughter, his light of day, to this unpleasant stranger? Prince Farouk saw his father's hesitation and spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "Father, let me examine this horse more carefully before you decide. Any wonder might have hidden flaws. Let me mount it and test it myself. If it truly works as promised, then we can discuss suitable rewards." The black began to protest, but the king raised his hand. "My son speaks wisely. Prince Farouk, test the horse. We will delay any decisions until you return." Prince Farouk walked to the ebony horse. Unlike his older brother, he moved slowly, studying every detail. He circled it once, twice, examining the carved surface, the saddle, the mechanism. The horse revealed nothing. It was simply perfect, beautiful, mysterious as midnight. Finally, Prince Farouk mounted. He found the pin on the right side of the saddle just as his brother had described. But before turning it, he spoke to the man in black. "How do I bring it down again? How do I land it safely?" The man in black's eyes flickered with something dark. "Turn the pin to rise. That is all you need to know for now." "But how do I descend?" "Fly first. Understand its power. The rest will become clear." Something in the man's tone made Prince Farouk uneasy. But with the whole court watching, with his father waiting, with his sister's fate hanging in balance, he had no choice. He turned the pin. The ebony horse shuddered to life beneath him. It rose, smoothly at first, then faster, climbing into the bright spring air. Prince Farouk tried to guide it in circles as his brother had done, but the horse seemed to have its own mind. It climbed higher, higher, carrying him up past the palace towers, up past the city walls, up until the gathered crowd below looked small as scattered seeds. "Down!" Prince Farouk commanded, pulling on the silver reins. "Descend! Land!" The horse ignored him. It climbed higher still. Panic touched the prince's heart with cold fingers. He searched the saddle frantically with his hands, looking for another pin, another switch, any way to control the ascent. But the smooth ivory and gold revealed nothing. Below, the palace shrank to toy size. The whole city of Persia spread out like a painted miniature. The horse kept rising. In the courtyard far below, the crowd realized something was wrong. Prince Kamar grabbed the man in black by his robes. "What have you done? Tell us how to bring him down." Man in black smiled his awful smile. "There is another pin, on the left side of the saddle, but only I know this secret. Give me the princess as promised, and I will share that secret. Refuse, and your son will fly until the mechanism winds down, and then he will fall like a stone from the heavens." Rage filled Prince Kamar. He would have struck the man, but the king's guards held him back. The king himself stood frozen, watching his younger son disappear into the blue distance, becoming first a dot, then nothing at all, swallowed by sky. But Prince Farouk, high above the world, refused to surrender to fear. The earth below had vanished. He flew now among clouds, those vast, soft mountains of mist that drift through heaven. The air grew cold. He could see nothing but white fog around him, blue sky above. Still, the horse climbed. "Freezes. There must be another pin," the prince said aloud, speaking to calm himself. The villain mentioned, "Turn the pin," but gave no other instruction. Magic always has balance. Up must have down, rise must have fall. If one pin lifts, another must lower. Balance, always balance. His fingers searched the left side of the saddle where his right hand had found the first pin. At first he felt nothing but smooth surface. Then, there, a small protrusion, a twin to the first pin, hidden slightly under the saddle's edge where a rider wouldn't accidentally brush it. Prince Farouk gripped this second pin and turned it counterclockwise. Escalating, the ascent stopped. The horse hung suspended in the sky, motionless as a painted thing. The prince turned the pin further. The horse began to descend, gently, controllable, obedient to his touch. Cuff's relief flooded through him like warm honey. He laughed aloud, there in the sky, with only clouds for company. "Clever," he said to the horse, patting its ebony neck. "Clever indeed. 2 pins, one for earth, one for heaven. Turn right to rise, left to fall. Simple as breathing, once you know." He guided the horse downward through the clouds, but as the mist cleared and the world came back into view below him, Prince Farouk realized he had no idea where he was. Murkia spread below him. These were not the familiar golden domes and gardens of his father's city. Instead, he saw a different land, greener than Persia, crossed by a wide river that sparkled like a silver ribbon, dotted with groves of trees he didn't recognize. In the distance rose a city of white stone, its buildings gleaming in the afternoon sun like a city made of pearl and ivory. Flown much farther than he thought. The ebony horse had carried him across deserts and mountains while he struggled with its controls. Night would fall soon. Already the sun hung lower in the west, painting the sky with the first brushstrokes of rose and amber. "I should return home," Prince Farouk murmured. "Father will be worried." Freezes. As he thought this, his eyes caught sight of something beautiful in the city below. A palace set apart from other buildings, surrounded by gardens that glowed green even from this height. And in those gardens, visible for just a moment before trees hid the view, he glimpsed a figure in white moving among the flowers. Curiosity tugged at him. And something else, a feeling he couldn't name, like music heard from very far away, calling him down. "Just to see where I've come to," the prince told himself. "Just to rest a moment before the long flight home. Just to—" He guided the ebony horse downward, toward that white palace with its green gardens, as the sun sank lower and the first stars began to prick through the darkening blue. The palace belonged to the king of Sana'a, a land far south of Persia, where the air always held the scent of incense and the people were known for their wisdom and poetry. The king had one daughter, Princess Moonlight, they called her, though her true name was a word that meant the end of all searching. That evening she walked in her garden as she did each sunset, moving between the jasmine and roses, trailing her fingers across leaves that whispered at her touch. Her attendants followed at a respectful distance, giving their mistress space for her evening thoughts. Princess Moonlight was beautiful in a way that made people think of water, not wild ocean waves, but the still surface of a deep pool that reflects stars. She moved with grace that seemed effortless, spoke with a voice like wind through reed flutes, and had a mind that loved riddles and books and watching the patterns that birds made in the sky. She had refused every suitor who came seeking her hand, not from pride, but because something in her heart waited for something specific, though what that something was, she couldn't say. As she walked that evening, thinking of nothing in particular, enjoying the way the cooling air touched her face, she heard a strange sound above her, a rushing, like great wings beating. She looked up. There, descending from the darkening sky, came a sight that made her stop breathing. A horse, black as obsidian, gleaming in the last light, flew down through the air as easily as birds fly, as naturally as leaves fall. Upon its back sat a young man in foreign clothes, his face turned downward, guiding the impossible steed toward her garden with skill and grace. The ebony horse landed softly on the marble path, its hooves making no more sound than flower petals falling. The young man dismounted and stood there, a stranger in a strange land, looking at the princess with eyes that widened in wonder. A long moment neither spoke. The garden held its breath. Even the fountain seemed to whisper more quietly. Prince Farouk saw before him a woman whose beauty pierced his heart like a gentle arrow. He forgot his father's court. He forgot the man in black and the quarrel and his desperate flight into sky. He forgot everything except the certainty that he had been flying his whole life toward this garden, this moment, this person. Princess Moonlight saw a young man, travel-worn and windswept, but with kind eyes and a thoughtful face, who had arrived on a flying horse like something out of the old stories her nurse used to tell. Her heart, which had been waiting without knowing what it waited for, suddenly understood. "You're real," the princess whispered, more to herself than to him. "I am," Prince Farouk replied, "though I'm not entirely sure how I came to be here, or even where here is." "You are in Sana'a, in the kingdom of my father." "Sana'a, I have flown far indeed then. I am Prince Farouk of Persia, and I came here by accident, though it feels less like accident with every passing moment. I am Princess Moonlight, and I think perhaps accidents are simply fates that haven't explained themselves yet." At each other, there in the garden with evening gathering around them, and the ebony horse standing patient as shadow. The princess's attendants, watching from a distance, grew alarmed. "A strange man, arrived by magic," they whispered urgently among themselves. One ran to fetch the palace guards, another went to inform the king. But Princess Moonlight waved away concern. Something in her heart knew this was no danger. This was something else entirely. Something important. Something true. "Your horse," she said, moving closer to examine the marvel. "It's carved from wood. How does it fly?" "Magic," Prince Farouk said. "Or engineering so advanced it seems like magic. A wicked craftsman made it, thinking to trap my father with its wonder. But I learned its secret. 2 pins, one for rising, one for falling. Turn right for sky, left for earth. Simple, once you know." "Nothing simple ever brought a prince from Persia to my garden at sunset," the princess said softly. "May I touch it?" "Of course." She laid her hand on the horse's ebony neck. The wood felt cool and smooth, almost alive somehow. She could feel something humming within it, not gears or springs, but something more mysterious. Energy, possibility, the captured essence of flight itself. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Not as beautiful as—" Prince Farouk began, then stopped, suddenly shy. The princess turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw understanding, and something more, the mirror of his own suddenly blooming feelings. Then the moment shattered. Palace guards rushed into the garden, their swords drawn, surrounding the prince. Behind them came the king of Sana'a himself, his face thunderous with concern for his daughter's safety. "Kosher, step away from my daughter," the king commanded. "Who are you? How did you enter my palace? Prince Farouk bowed low, showing respect. Majesty, I mean no harm. I am Prince Farouk of Persia, son of the great king whose court welcomes sages and makers of wonders. I arrived here by accident, flying on this magical horse, and landed in your garden only to rest before returning home. I would never— Lies, one of the guards spat. No horse flies. This is a spy, or an assassin, or a madman, another suggested. The king looked from the prince to the ebony horse to his daughter's face, and there he saw something that made him pause. His daughter looked at this stranger with an expression he'd never seen before. Not fear, not suspicion, something else, something that made his royal heart sink with understanding. Take him to the guest chambers, the king said finally. Do not harm him, but guard him well. Tomorrow we will sort truth from fantasy. As for this horse, take it to the treasury vault where it can do no mischief. Father, please, Princess Moonlight began, but the king silenced her with a look. We will speak tomorrow, daughter. Go to your chambers. Tonight has been strange enough. 4 guards lifted the ebony horse. It took all 4, for though it was only wood, it was solid and heavy as real horses are. They carried it away toward the palace vaults. Other guards escorted Prince Farouk to a richly appointed room high in the palace towers. They left him there with food and water, locking the door behind them with a heavy key. Prince Farouk sat by the window, looking out at the unfamiliar stars. His heart felt strange, bruised and exhilarated at once. He had met a princess who looked at him as if she recognized him, as if she'd been waiting. But now he was a prisoner, and the ebony horse was locked away. And how would he ever return home? How would he ever see the princess again? How would anything ever be right? He pressed his forehead against the cool window glass and thought of his father, who must be frantic with worry. He thought of his brother Kamar. He thought of the man in black, who was probably even now demanding the marriage he sought as ransom for Prince Farouk's safe return. I should never have mounted that horse, he whispered to the stars. And yet I cannot regret where it brought me. Whistlebell Tower, Princess Moonlight sat by her own window, unable to sleep. Her mind kept returning to the young man who had fallen from the sky into her garden, like an answer to a question she hadn't known she was asking. She thought of his kind eyes, his respectful manner, the way he looked at her as if seeing something precious and rare. Just a stranger, she told herself firmly. A foreigner who will be sent away tomorrow, and I will forget him, and everything will return to normal. But even as she thought this, she knew it was a lie. Something had changed. A door had opened in her heart that would never fully close again. She pulled her shawl closer against the night chill and watched the same stars her prince watched, neither of them knowing they looked at the same consolation. Morning came soft and golden over Sana'a. Karn of Sana'a sat in his throne room, trying to decide what to do with his unexpected guest. His advisors argued in whispers around him, his guards stood ready, and his daughter sat beside him, quiet but watchful, her eyes bright with barely contained feeling. Prince Farouk was brought before the throne. He had slept little, but he stood straight and calm, showing the dignity of his royal blood. Tell me your story, the king commanded. Every detail, and know that if you lie, my wizards will sense it. So Prince Farouk told everything: the festival in Persia, the 3 wonders, the man in black who demanded a princess as his price, his own flight into the sky, his discovery of the second pin, his long journey south. He spoke clearly and honestly, holding nothing back. When he finished, silence filled the throne room. The king studied the young man before him with the keen eye of one who has ruled long and seen much. If what you say is true, the king said slowly, then you are indeed a prince of noble blood. But how can I verify such claims? You could be an adventurer who stole this magic horse. You could be anyone. Father, Princess Moonlight spoke up, her voice steady. I believe him. Your belief, daughter, is not evidence. Then test me, Prince Farouk said. Ask me anything about Persia, about its courts and customs. Write to my father. He will confirm my identity. In the meantime, let me serve you in some way to prove my character." The king considered this. Before he could respond, his grand vizier leaned close and whispered urgently in his ear. The king's expression changed, grew thoughtful, then calculating. "Prince, if prince you are, I have a proposal. Stay here as my guest for 1 month. Let us observe your character, verify your story. If all you say proves true, I will give you my daughter's hand in marriage, and the ebony horse as a wedding gift. You will return to Persia with a bride, and our 2 kingdoms will be joined in friendship." Princess Moonlight's breath caught. She looked at the prince with hope bright in her eyes. Prince Farouk felt his heart soar. "Majesty, nothing would bring me greater joy. I accept gladly." But the Grand Vizier wasn't finished whispering. The king's expression shifted again, grew harder. "However," the king continued, "the ebony horse will remain locked in the treasury vault, and you will remain as a guest, guarded always. We cannot risk you flying away in the night. If you truly are a prince, you will understand this caution. If you are not, well, truth will reveal itself in time." So it was decided. Prince Farouk was given luxurious apartments in the palace. He could walk in certain gardens, dine in certain halls, but always guards watched him. He could speak with the princess, but never alone, always with attendants present. The ebony horse remained locked away, hidden from sight. Days passed like water flowing, quick and slow at once. Prince Farouk and Princess Moonlight spoke whenever they could, learning each other through words and glances. They discovered they both loved poetry, both watched birds and found patterns in their flight. Both had dreamed of finding someone who understood the language of their hearts without translation. Love grew between them like a garden growing, naturally, inevitably, as right as flowers following the sun. But as the days passed, Prince Farouk grew uneasy. Something felt wrong. He noticed the way the Grand Vizier watched him with unfriendly eyes. He heard whispers among the servants that stopped when he drew near. He sensed plots being woven, though he couldn't quite see the threads. On the 7th night of his stay, everything came clear. The Grand Vizier had a son, a spoiled, selfish young man who had long sought Princess Moonlight's hand in marriage. The vizier had promised his son that he would arrange the match, and the king had nearly agreed. But then this foreign prince had arrived and stolen the princess's heart, ruining all their careful plans. The vizier whispered poison in the king's ear. "This stranger brings only trouble. Keep his horse. Send him away as a prisoner or worse. Let my son marry the princess. Keep the kingdom stable." The king, uncertain, began to listen. Meanwhile, the vizier's son, bitter and angry, made his own plans. If he couldn't have the princess's love, he would at least have the marvel, the ebony horse. With such a treasure, he could fly to distant lands, make his fortune, become famous beyond his father's wildest dreams. On that 7th night, he bribed the treasury guards with promises of gold. He entered the vault where the ebony horse stood waiting in shadow. The vizier's son had watched Prince Farouk describe the horse to the king. He knew about the 2 pins, right to rise, left to fall. How hard could it be? He was clever. He was ambitious. He would master this wonder and show everyone his worth. He climbed onto the ebony saddle. The guards watched nervously. "Master, perhaps you should wait. Perhaps in daylight." "Silence! I know what I'm doing!" He found the pin on the right side and turned it sharply. The horse shuddered. It rose, not smoothly like when Prince Farouk controlled it, but jerky and fast, as if responding to the rider's arrogance with anger of its own. The vizier's son gripped the reins tightly as the horse shot upward. "Yes! Yes, it works! I'm flying!" The horse burst through the treasury vault roof, simply crashed through wood and tile and stone like a fist through paper. Up into the night sky it soared, carrying its new rider higher and higher, spinning wildly, responding to rough hands with rough motion. "Down! Come down!" the vizier's son screamed, suddenly terrified. But in his panic, he couldn't remember which pin was which. He turned the right pin more, and the horse climbed faster. He yanked the reins. The horse spiraled. He shouted and cursed, but the ebony horse didn't care for his commands. Higher and higher they went, spinning into the darkness, until both horse and rider were swallowed by night sky and disappeared beyond sight. Palace, alarms rang out. Guards shouted. The king emerged in his nightclothes. The Grand Vizier wept and raged, understanding his son had stolen the horse and was now lost, perhaps forever. In his guarded apartments, Prince Farouk heard the commotion. He rushed to the window and saw the hole torn in the treasury roof, saw people running with torches, heard shouts about the ebony horse being stolen. His heart sank like a stone in deep water. Way home, his only home, was gone. Whoever it properly, they could be killed. The horse could be destroyed, and he would be trapped here, blamed for the theft perhaps, never able to return to Persia, never able to help his father or clear his name. He pressed his hands against the cold stone wall and fought despair. In her chambers, Princess Moonlight heard the chaos too. She ran to her father's side, found him in the treasury amid broken beams and scattered treasure, the Grand Vizier weeping while describing his son's folly. "The horse is gone," the king said grimly, looking at his daughter. "The foreign prince's story may have been true after all, but now we have no proof, no way to verify anything, and my Grand Vizier's son is lost, perhaps dead. This is disaster." Princess Moonlight felt torn in two. She grieved for the vizier's foolish son, lost in the sky. But part of her heart whispered that this was also tragedy for Prince Farouk, trapped now, unable to return home, his one means of travel stolen. "Father," she said quietly, "you must not blame Prince Farouk for this. He tried to warn everyone about the horse's power." "I blame no one," the king said wearily, "but facts remain. The prince is stranded here. We cannot send him home. We cannot verify his story. Everything is in chaos." In the cold hour before dawn, the vizier's son finally managed to turn the left pin. The wild spinning stopped. The horse descended, fast, too fast, but at least downward. They had flown far from Sana'a, carried on winds over deserts and mountains. Below lay a land the young man didn't recognize. He guided the horse down desperately, aiming for lights that suggested a city. The ebony horse crashed into a market square, tumbling across cobblestones, throwing its rider clear. The young man rolled and lay still, bruised and battered, but alive. Market workers found him at dawn, found also the marvelous ebony horse lying on its side like a fallen statue. Word spread quickly. "A flying horse! A wonder! Someone fetch the king!" This happened to be a kingdom ruled by a very old king, whose mind had grown strange with years, who believed in omens and portents and magical signs. When his guards brought news of a flying horse fallen from the sky, the old king became convinced this was a message from heaven. "Bring the horse to my palace," he commanded. "This is a sign. The gods have sent me a divine steed." As for the vizier's son, battered and confused, he tried to explain what had happened. But the old king didn't care about explanations. He cared only about the marvel. "Put this stranger in the prison," the king ordered. "He tried to steal heaven's gift. The horse is mine now." So the vizier's son found himself locked in a dungeon cell. His grand adventure turned to nightmare, while the ebony horse was installed in the old king's palace like an idol to be worshipped. Days passed. In Sana'a, Prince Farouk remained a guest who was also a prisoner, his situation unclear. The king treated him kindly but kept him guarded. Without the ebony horse, there was no way to verify his story. Without the horse, there was no way home. In Persia, Prince Farouk's father mourned, believing his son lost forever. The man in black had been thrown into prison, his wicked scheme exposed. But that brought no comfort. The ebony horse was gone, and the prince with it. And far away, an old king danced around a wooden horse, believing heaven had blessed him. This is how things stood for many long days and nights, everything tangled, everyone trapped, no clear path forward. But Prince Farouk was not one to accept defeat. He thought constantly about escape. He couldn't. Simply run. Guards watched him always. He had no horse, no means of crossing the vast distance back to Persia. But perhaps he didn't need to go home right away. Perhaps he could find the Ebony Horse first, wherever it had gone. He began to ask careful questions of the servants who brought his meals. Had anyone heard news from other kingdoms? Any reports of strange occurrences? Any travelers with unusual stories? Most knew nothing. But one old servant, who had been kind to the prince, mentioned something interesting. "There is talk in the market, Your Highness, of a marvel in the kingdom of King Harun, 3 days' journey west. They say an ebony horse fell from the sky, and the old king believes it a gift from the gods. Just marketplace gossip, probably, but strange enough to mention." Prince Farouk's heart leaped. 3 days west. That must be his horse. The fool who stole it must have lost control and crashed there. That night, Prince Farouk made his move. He had befriended one of his guards, a young man who had a poet's soul, and enjoyed their conversations about philosophy and stars. To this guard, Prince Farouk told his full story, holding nothing back, speaking with such obvious honesty that the guard's heart was moved. "I don't ask you to let me escape," the prince said quietly. "I ask only that you help me send word to King Harun's court. Tell them a prince of Persia seeks his property, an ebony horse that belongs to his father. Ask for its return, that's all." The guard looked troubled. "If I'm caught helping you, then say I tricked you. I'll take all blame. But please, this matters more than you know. Not just for me, but for the princess. You've seen how she looks at me. You know something true grows between us. Help me set things right." The guard wrestled with his conscience. Finally, he nodded. "I'll send a messenger, but that's all I can do." "It's enough. Thank you." The message was sent, carried by fast riders toward the kingdom of King Harun. Meanwhile, Prince Farouk waited, hoping, praying that the ebony horse was truly there, that it was intact, that he might somehow reclaim it. Withdrawing passed like wounded things. Then finally, a reply came back. King Harun responded with laughter. "I have received a divine gift from the heavens. No mortal king has claim on what the gods provide. Tell your prince his property is mine by divine right. He may come worship at my court if he wishes to see it, but he may not take it." When Prince Farouk heard this, he knew what he must do. He went to the king of Sana'a and spoke plainly. "Majesty, I know where the ebony horse is. It's in the court of King Harun, 3 days west. I must go there and reclaim it, not by force, but by cleverness. If you truly wish to verify my story and see me marry your daughter, let me make this journey. Send guards with me if you wish, but let me go." The king looked long at the young prince. He saw determination there, and honesty, and courage. He looked at his daughter, who sat nearby, her eyes pleading silently. Finally, he nodded. "Go," he said, "but my guards will accompany you. If you try to escape, they will stop you. If you succeed in recovering the horse and proving your story true, then we will discuss wedding arrangements." So Prince Farouk set out westward, riding a real horse this time, accompanied by 6 of the king's strongest guards. Princess Moonlight watched them depart from her tower window, her heart torn between hope and fear. They traveled for 3 days across rocky hills and sparse forests, through small villages and past ancient ruins. Prince Farouk spent the journey thinking, planning. He couldn't simply demand the horse back. King Harun clearly wouldn't give it up. He couldn't steal it, not with guards watching him. No, he would need cunning. He would need a plan worthy of the tales told about clever princes in the old stories. On the evening of the 3rd day, they reached King Harun's city. It was smaller than Sana'a, dustier, its walls weathered by time. But the palace at its center still gleamed white in the setting sun. Prince Farouk requested an audience with the king. It was granted quickly, The old king was always eager for visitors who might admire his divine horse. They were brought to the throne room. There stood King Harun, ancient, withered, his eyes bright with the strange light of one whose thoughts don't quite follow normal paths. And there, standing on a raised platform like a religious icon, was the ebony horse. Prince Farouk's heart soared to see it intact. It looked exactly as it had in his father's courtyard, perfect, beautiful, mysterious. Home was captured in that ebony form. Freedom. Hope. "You come to see my divine gift?" King Harun asked, his voice thin and reedy. "I come to reclaim my father's property, Majesty," Prince Farouk said carefully. "This horse was made for the King of Persia. It was stolen from his palace. Surely your Majesty doesn't wish to keep stolen goods." "Stolen? Stolen? This horse fell from heaven. The gods sent it. I found it in my market square. Finder's keeper, that's the law." Prince Farouk saw immediately that reason wouldn't work here. The old king's mind had fixed on the idea of divine gifts, and nothing would shake it loose. He would have to try something else. "Majesty," the prince said, bowing low, "you are wise beyond measure. Clearly the gods favor you, but, forgive my boldness, do you know how to make the horse fly? The gods wouldn't send you a gift without also sending knowledge to use it, would they?" King Harun's expression flickered. "Fly? Of course it flies. I saw it fly when it arrived." "Yes, when it crashed. But have you made it fly since then? Have you ridden it through the clouds? Have you proven yourself worthy of this divine gift by mastering its power?" The old king's face grew troubled. Truth was, he had tried to make the horse fly. He'd climbed on it, kicked it, shouted at it, ordered priests to pray over it. Nothing had worked. The horse remained stubbornly earthbound. "The magic must need recharging," the king said defensively. "Divine power must be renewed through proper rituals." "Perhaps," Prince Farouk said smoothly. "Or perhaps the gods require a worthy master, someone with royal blood, someone young and strong. Your Majesty is wise, but perhaps the gods intended this gift to be wielded by a champion in your service, someone who could fly the horse in your name, bringing you glory." The king's eyes lit up. "Yes, yes, exactly. The gods need a young champion. I am a prince of Persia, trained in riding since childhood. I have royal blood in my veins. If your Majesty permits, I could attempt to master this divine steed for you. If I succeed, you would be known as the king who commanded a flying horse. Your fame would spread across the world." King Harun nearly trembled with excitement. "Yes, yes, try. Show me you can make it fly." The guards from Sana'a shifted uneasily. They suspected the prince planned something, but couldn't see exactly what. Still, they watched carefully, hands on their sword hilts. Prince Farouk approached the ebony horse slowly, reverently, as if approaching something holy. He circled it once, examining it thoroughly, both to build anticipation and to make sure it hadn't been damaged in the crash. Everything looked intact. The pins were still there, the mechanism still whole. He bowed to the king. "I will need complete silence. The magic responds to concentration. Everyone must stand back." The court obeyed, pressing back against the walls. The guards from Sana'a hesitated, then stayed where they were, watching intently. Prince Farouk mounted the ebony horse. He settled into the familiar saddle, took up the silver reins. For a moment he simply sat there, reconnecting with the marvel, feeling its potential humming through the dark wood. Then his fingers found the right pin. "Behold!" he called out in a theatrical voice. "I command the divine steed to rise!" He turned the pin clockwise. The ebony horse shuddered. It stirred like something waking from sleep. Then, smooth as silk sliding on silk, it rose into the air. Gasps filled the throne room. King Harun clapped his withered hands together, dancing with delight. The courtiers murmured in awe. The guards from Sana'a tensed, suddenly understanding what was about to happen. "The magic obeys," Prince Farouk called down. "I will circle your palace to prove the gods' favor." He guided the horse higher, up toward the roof. The throne room had tall ceilings, high enough for the horse to climb. Prince Farouk directed it toward the large windows that let in afternoon light. "Stop him!" one of Sanaa's guards shouted, finally realizing the trick. "He's escaping!" But too late. Brushed, the ebony horse flew through the open window like an arrow through air. In seconds it was outside, climbing into open sky, while below the throne room erupted in chaos. King Harun wailed about betrayal. The guards cursed their foolishness. The courtiers ran to windows to watch the horse and rider shrink into the distance. Prince Farouk laughed, not from mockery but from pure joy. He had his horse back. He was free. The sky opened around him like a vast blue flower, and the ebony horse carried him upward on wings of wonder. He looked down at the city shrinking below, then turned the horse east, back toward Sanaa, back toward the princess whose face filled his heart. The journey that took 3 days by land took only hours by air. The ebony horse flew tirelessly, swift as thought, carrying him over hills and valleys, over forests and streams. The sun was still high when the white towers of Sanaa's palace came into view. Prince Farouk guided the horse down, landing gently in the same garden where he'd first arrived, the garden where he'd first seen Princess Moonlight walking among roses. She was there now, as if waiting, as if some part of her soul knew to watch the sky that day. Horse descend. She saw the prince dismount, and she ran to him, propriety forgotten, dignity abandoned, and threw herself into his arms. "You came back," she whispered against his chest. "I will always come back," he whispered into her hair. "Always, as long as breath remains in me." They stood there holding each other while the garden sang with bird song, and the fountain whispered its approval. When the king of Sanaa heard that Prince Farouk had returned with the ebony horse, he came to the garden immediately. He looked at the prince, at the horse, at his daughter's radiant face. Understanding filled him. Here was truth, here was honor, here was love that had proven itself against all obstacles. "Prince Farouk of Persia," the king said formally, "you have proven your story true. You have shown courage, cleverness, and determination. If you still wish it, I give you my daughter's hand in marriage, with my blessing and joy." "I wish it more than life itself," Prince Farouk replied. Princess Moonlight smiled through tears, happy tears, tears like rain after drought. "But first," the king continued, "we must send word to your father in Persia. He must believe you dead. We must tell him you live, and invite him to attend the wedding." So messengers were sent, fast riders carrying letters sealed with the royal seal of Sanaa. They rode day and night, changing horses at every village, racing toward Persia with news that would turn mourning into joy. Meanwhile, in Sanaa, preparations began for a wedding unlike any seen before, a wedding of a princess and a prince who had found each other through magic and fate and the courage to follow their hearts. When the messengers reached Persia and delivered their news, the king of Persia wept openly. His son lived, his beloved Farouk was safe and engaged to be married. The whole court erupted in celebration. The man in black was released from prison and banished from the kingdom forever. Let him take his schemes elsewhere. Taxed, the king of Persia prepared his own journey south, bringing with him a magnificent caravan of gifts, courtiers, musicians, and dancers. He would attend his son's wedding in splendor worthy of 2 kingdoms uniting. The wedding took place 2 months later, when Persia's king arrived in Sanaa with his retinue, of stunning beauty. The palace gardens were decorated with thousands of lanterns that glowed like captive stars. Musicians played instruments that sang like angels. Dancers moved like living poetry. Tables bent under the weight of delicacies, fruits glazed with honey, nuts roasted with exotic spices, sweets that melted on the tongue like flavored clouds. Stood in robes of crimson and gold, his heart thundering in his chest. Princess Moonlight approached in white silk that seemed to glow with its own light, her eyes meeting his across the flower-scattered distance. Vows under the stars, promises of love and loyalty, of partnership and respect, of building a life together that honored both their kingdoms and their hearts. When the ceremony ended, fireworks exploded across the sky, flowers of light blooming in darkness. The crowd cheered. Musicians played triumphant songs. The two kings embraced, celebrating the joining of their houses. And in the garden, away from the main celebration, the ebony horse stood silent and patient, having fulfilled its purpose. It had brought a prince across deserts. It had been lost and found. It had carried hope through sky. Now it would rest, its journeys complete. Or so everyone thought. After the wedding, Prince Farouk and Princess Moonlight prepared to return to Persia. They would live there, in the palace where the prince had grown up, but would visit Sana'a often, keeping strong the bonds between the kingdoms. The ebony horse would carry them home. On the morning of their departure, they dressed in traveling clothes and went to where the horse waited in the courtyard. Both kings came to see them off. Courtiers gathered. Well-wishers called out blessings. Prince Farouk helped his bride onto the ebony saddle, then climbed up behind her. He wrapped one arm around her waist, holding her close. With his other hand, he found the right pin. "Ready?" he whispered in her ear. "Ready," she whispered back, her voice trembling with excitement and only a little fear. He turned the pin. The ebony horse shuddered to life. It rose smoothly into the morning air, carrying the prince and princess upward. Higher they climbed, circling the palace once in farewell. Princess Moonlight gasped at the view. Her city spread below like a painting, the gardens like green jewels, the river like spilled silver. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "You're beautiful," Prince Farouk said. She turned her head to smile at him, and they kissed there in the sky, suspended between earth and heaven, beginning their life together with a kiss that tasted of joy and promise. Then Prince Farouk guided the horse north and east, toward Persia, toward home. They flew over the by foot or regular horse, but which seemed smaller now, not diminished, but comprehensible, knowable. They saw mountains like wrinkles in the earth's face. They saw deserts painted gold by sun. They saw forests like green carpets, rivers like veins of silver. The flight took hours, but the hours passed like minutes when spent wrapped in each other's presence. They talked and laughed, and sometimes simply flew in comfortable silence, watching the world unfold below. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, the familiar towers of Persia's palace came into view. Prince Farouk guided the ebony horse down into the courtyard, the same courtyard where the three inventors had presented their wonders so long ago, where this whole adventure had begun. A crowd gathered immediately, cheering and calling out welcome. The king of Persia rushed forward to embrace his son. Prince Kamar hugged his brother fiercely, then bowed to his new sister-in-law with genuine warmth. "Welcome home," the king said, tears streaming down his face. "Welcome home, my son. Welcome to our family, Princess Moonlight. You have brought light to us indeed." That night, Persia celebrated. Another feast, more music, more dancing. The story of Prince Farouk's adventures spread through the city, the flight into sky, the landing in Sana'a, the stolen horse, the clever reclaiming, the wedding. People told and retold the tale, adding embellishments, making it grow into legend. And the ebony horse? The king of Persia had it placed in the palace treasury, but not locked away in darkness. It stood in a place of honor, visible to all who visited, a reminder of how sometimes the greatest troubles lead to the greatest joys. How magic, whether in wood or in hearts, can carry us to unexpected destinations. How courage and love and cleverness can solve even the most tangled problems. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Prince Farouk and Princess Moonlight would visit the treasury just to look at the horse. They would remember their first meeting, their separation, their reunion. They would touch the smooth ebony surface and whisper thanks to the marvel that had brought them together. Years passed. The prince and princess had children, 3 daughters and 2 sons, all blessed with their parents' kindness and wisdom. They ruled Persia justly when the old king finally rested from his labors. They kept peace with Sana'a and many other kingdoms. They were known for their fairness, their learning, and their love for each other that never faded. And they lived, as the old stories say, in happiness and contentment. The ebony horse stayed in the treasury, growing older but no less magical. Sometimes, on special occasions, Prince Farouk would mount it one more time and fly, not far, just a circle around the palace just to remember. And sometimes, Princess Moonlight would join him, and they would soar together through the sky they'd first crossed to find each other. Their children would watch and clap and dream their own dreams of adventure. And in the gardens below, roses bloomed, fountains sang, and life continued its gentle unfolding, full of wonder, full of love, full of stories waiting to be told under starlight to children whose eyes grow heavy with sleep. And so, dear traveler, we come to the end of our tale. The ebony horse rests in its treasury, patient as only magical things can be patient. The prince and princess rest in each other's arms, their love a shelter against all storms. And you, gentle listener, you too deserve rest now. Let the story settle in your mind like dust settling after a long journey. Let its images soften, the flying horse becoming a shadow, the palaces becoming dreams, the whole adventure drifting away like clouds dispersing across an evening sky. Feel your breathing slow, natural as tides wailing overhead. Each breath out carries away a little more of the day's weight. Each breath in brings a little more peace. Your body knows how to rest. It's been waiting for this permission. Let your muscles soften, starting with your face. The small muscles around your eyes, let them release. Your jaw, unclenched, loose, comfortable. Your shoulders, drop them, let them melt into whatever supports you. Each arm growing heavier, warmer, more relaxed. Hands open, fingers loose. Down through your body this wave of letting go. Your chest rises and falls with no effort, breathing you while you simply exist. Your belly soft. Your back supported completely by bed or chair or floor. Your legs, all their strength needed for nothing now, becoming heavy, sinking into rest. Even your feet, tired from carrying you through the day, finally allowed to simply be. Outside this moment doesn't need your attention now. Morning will come with its tasks and duties, but morning is far away, so far away it might as well be in another story. For now, there is only this. The dark behind your eyelids, the soft rhythm of breath, the gentle pulling of sleep like gentle hands guiding you down into softness. Yourself on the ebony horse, but this time it doesn't fly up. It carries you down, down, down into deep rest. Down, through layers of consciousness, like descending through veils of silk, each one softer than the last, each one darker, quieter, more peaceful. The layer is where thoughts drift like lazy fish in a pond. You can see them moving, but they don't catch your attention. They're just movement, just patterns, just something happening far away from the center of yourself. The second layer is deeper, where even those thoughts fade into silence. Nothing here but sensation, warmth, weight, comfort, the feeling of being held safely by the world itself. Deeper still, the third layer, where even sensation begins to blur and soften. You're aware only of a vast, gentle darkness, as welcoming as a mother's embrace, as eternal as stars. And deeper yet, the fourth layer, where awareness itself grows dim and distant. You float here in a place beyond words, beyond images, beyond anything except the purest, simplest rest. Your body repairs itself here, cell by cell. Your mind processes the day, sorting memories, releasing what doesn't serve, keeping what matters. You do nothing. Sleep does everything. You completely, utterly safe. The ebony horse has carried you to a garden where no harm can reach, where worry cannot enter, where fear doesn't exist. Here, there is only peace, only softness, only the deep, nourishing rest that every living thing needs and deserves. The night wraps around you like silk wraps around skin. Stars wheel overhead, keeping their ancient watch. The moon, whether new or full or somewhere between, sends down its silver light like a blessing. And you rest beneath it all, part of the great pattern, part of the endless cycle of day and night, waking and sleeping, adventure and rest. Stories end, but sleep goes on. Stories teach us, move us, carry us away, but sleep brings us home. To ourselves, to peace, to the deep well within where everything begins and everything returns. You'll wake refreshed. You'll remember the prince and the princess if you choose, or the memory will fade like morning fog, and that's fine too. What matters is that you gave yourself these moments of rest. What matters is that you trusted yourself to let go, to drift, to sleep. I can feel it in my words. They're falling into deeper quiet, speaking to a listener who has already begun the journey into dreams. That's good. That's right. That's exactly as it should be. Let go just a little more. Just a little. The ebony horse carries you still, down through velvet darkness, down to where sleep lives, that ancient, patient friend who has been waiting for you since the day began, since always. Rest now. Deep rest. Complete rest. Sleep. Polling. Princess. And sleep. Good night, gentle traveler. May your dreams be peaceful as gardens. Blindness, may your rest be deep as oceans. May you wake tomorrow renewed, remembering that magic lives in stories, in love, in the simple miracle of consciousness, letting go into darkness and trusting it will return with dawn. Sleep now. Just sleep.